Welcome to Mike's VB Drones. I hope you enjoy this video. Okay, so what's going on here is my Mobula 7 HD. I decided to fly in the morning and, well, we took a little dew from the grass inside the CrazyBee F4 FR flight controller version 2.0 and fried the board, the old board. So what you're looking at is this sucker all tore apart. I don't know if that's in focus or not, but I pulled the old flight controller out. And let's see if we can get this in here. So right there, heck, I don't even have a nice little pointer like some people do. But right there, that component is fried and you can't see very well, so you'll have to take my word for it. So anyway, I'm going to solder the new board together. And so, with that, picture-wise, I took pictures of the wiring so I could remember which way it goes. And even though it's a different board, the first 4 connections are here on the computer for me. Basically these 4 wires will be soldered onto these 4 points right here. Yellow, blue, red for power, black for ground, and easy as that. It's done. It will be done. Well, we'll see how easy. Anyway, so right now I'm just going to prep the pads. Heating up the pad, dropping on some leaded solder, which will give us a little better conductivity, has a little better, the solder doesn't crack as easy, let's put it that way, when you use leaded solder. And that square pad that I did just last is the ground pad, and since it takes a little bit more heat for the ground to actually attach to a ground pad, just because the circuit runs through the board differently. I don't know how to fully explain it, but it just takes more heat to make the connection. So again, yellow, blue, red, black. A little bit of solder to get it started. Yellow. Blue. Red, black, and I also have a green wire which has to go on T2. T2 is changed on this board, and it is all the way up top here, if you can see me pointing. Originally the T2 was over here on my old board. So now I have to make arrangement for the extra wire for the T2 to go all the way up here and not interfere with how this goes through. So I need an additional piece of wire length to lengthen that. And it's always a good idea to keep all your scrap wires. I might have a green piece in here somewhere. There it is. since this wire is a gel-coated wire, makes it a little bit easier. I got solder on one end, so I just need to solder the other end. So I can make a good lap solder between the two wires. And flux is your friend when you are doing a dry solder. So basically I'm just wiping some solder onto the wire. It'll make it easier when you're trying to solder two together. I don't have, where is my blue tack? I have some around here somewhere. There it is. Handy dandy blue tack. I'll take a piece of that so I can hold one of the wires in position while I solder to it. That way you have one hand free, since I don't have a helping hand to help me. And a little solder to wet the tip. And as good as that, got connection. And a good protocol would dictate when you solder something, to make a lap solder like this, you want to put a piece of heat shrink over it so it doesn't ground out anywhere on the body. So, with my handy dandy box of heat shrink, clip off a section because I only need a little portion of this to make sure that that's covered completely. Slide that over your solder joint and shrink into position. But since I don't have my heat gun set up yet, alright, so now we don't have to worry about that making a connection. I mean, it's long. I could clip it off just so we can save on space. You don't need any excess wire flopping around all over the place, making your build a mess if you don't have to. So, a new little bit of solder. And a little solder on T2. And the final solder T2. And watch your tip like I did. I touched the side of that one motor connector. And as easy as that, I made contact with it and burned it a little bit. But other than that, that is all the wires soldered. I'll give them a twist so it's a nice, clean bundle of wires going from this board up to the, I think it's the VTX if I remember right. I mean, all these have built-in plugs, so You really can't go too wrong with this as far as, I mean, the plug's only going to fit in one position. So now we need our power cable coming off of this. In this particular setup, the power runs from the bottom up. I will check to see if this is in focus. It's still kind of in focus. We'll see how it turns out in production once I put that out. But as far as this is concerned, I had my fat fingers in the way, so I actually need to look at the board. Square should be ground, but you always want to double check. And of course, no markings on this board. So now I get the fun task of looking it up online. So I'm going to come back to you here as soon as I have that information, because I don't want to fry my board. Alright, so didn't even think about it, but I still had the board with the power already done, so we can see red's going to the round hole, ground will be going to the square, just like I thought, but better safe than sorry, because I mean, we're spending money on these dang things. We don't want to have to repurchase again if we don't have to. So, easiest way to do this, add yourself a little bit of flux so you can use one hand. If you don't have to use flux, don't use it. I mean, the more flux, I mean, I'm using no clean, but it is what it is. You don't want flux on your electronics after the fact. So with that, since I need more solder, do a nice through hole solder. Make sure that you have a good, oh, it looks like somebody squished this. Sometimes you'll run into that instead of having a flat, or you'll have a flattened cable instead of round because they didn't twist the nub off before they solder dipped it. I run into that with work all the time. But what do? You make the best of it that you can. I have to make a correction. I reviewed this video as I was doing my production and noticed that the USB solder that I was talking about, that bridge, was already actually soldered to a portion of this ground plate. After I did testing, there was no ill effects as far as the connection with the USB and the battery connected at the same time, which leads me to believe that this is what they planned. It looks different than what my previous board has. That's why I thought that it was a bridge and a bad thing. but apparently everything is good to go. So here I'm about to use some solder wicking tape to pull off excess solder and start over fresh on this particular solder joint. So what you don't see with the solder wicking is that I applied flux liberally to the solder wick, and then this first attempt I didn't actually add enough solder to my tip of my iron, which resulted in, well, it didn't wick hardly any solder. You need solder to flow before it'll crawl up the tape. So you'll see with that with the second attempt. Okay, so I tested everything out. I power connected, all the lights light up. Solder joints are resoldered for the power. The USB where it bridged right there. The VTX connections are all there, good and solid. So now it's a matter of putting it back together and doing a test flight. So I will continue with this after I get this all put back together. So here we are with the final results as far as putting the drone back together. My Mobula, you know, it's pretty compact, so it's kind of hard to see, but yeah, I mean, it's what it is. It's a fun indoor drone, HD. It will record on board, so you get a good 1080p quality video while you're flying. I've tested on beta flight, props off, make sure all the motors are working, spinning the right direction, all the settings are correct. It's good to go. I powered it up, powered the motors, did all the checked on-screen display. Everything is rocking and rolling. So now all I got to do is put the props back on, do a test flight, and continue learning to pilot. Thank you for your time watching this video. I hope it was helpful.